Welcome back to the Liberty Perspective. I'm Joe Marshall. I'm going to continue with this show on constitutional audits, First Amendment audits, and the auditors, who they are, and what they're doing, and where what they're doing is coming from, why they're doing it. They're going to say that you can see a lot of these guys are wearing "We the People" on their hats, "We the People" on their shirts, know your rights, resist tyranny, that kind of thing. Basically, an anti-police sentiment. But at the same time, we got to remember too that a lot of these, cop watch, police to police kind of thing started with, Rodney King, really, right? I remember when Rodney King happened. I was an officer at Greenhaven Correctional Facility in the early 90s, 92, I think it was. Could be wrong. It was early 90s. But, those officers were caught on film. Excessive force, right? To say the least. I mean, you've got a lot of different things. You had Eric Garner, and then you have George Floyd instance where officers are being recorded in the street doing their job. Those films could be used to, portray things that aren't necessarily real. That's the danger, is that you can have film being used to portray things that actually that aren't even happening, but they could be used to push agendas falsely, right? However, people have a right to record in the streets, record law enforcement, record, cops. You should always be doing your job as if you're being recorded anyways. That said, what a lot of these auditors are doing, in the prisons, we've had officers, the corrections officers, one of them was just sentenced to 15 years in prison here not too long ago for the inmate that was beaten and then wound up dying at Marcy Correctional Facility. Those guys, they've made videos like these and when these instances are happening, when the officers with excessive force, they make every officer's job harder. They make every law enforcement officer's job harder. But that said, these guys that are doing the audits on the street, they're cop watch or police to police on the street, citizens recording officers arresting people on the street, that comes with the territory. They have that right, First Amendment, to record what's happening on the street as people are getting arrested. But what these auditors are doing now is that they're coming up to police on their job sites, in their precincts, in the halls of public buildings. They're going into correctional facilities, into administrative buildings. They're walking into state buildings of all kinds, municipal buildings of all kinds, because they say the sidewalk goes in there and it's owned by public property. They can be in there and they can put a camera in any employee's face. It's not just cops. Post offices, county clerk's office, civilians, it doesn't matter, because you got to remember, if they're an anarchist, which I've shown in the first video that I did on this, we have reasonable cause to believe that many, if not most of these guys are indeed anarchists, or at least consistent doing this, pushing an agenda consistent with revolutionary anarchists, and even sometimes communist or any other revolutionary collectivist doctrine against the state as a whole, against law enforcement as a whole. But that's the difference kind of between these old, like, cop watch kind of things that happened in the street. They enforce things on the street. Now they're going into the buildings. Now they're kind of walking in and they're pushing that line where public employees have a right to have a secure environment. You get a crazy man or a crazy person walking around and they're putting a camera in everybody's face. Some of these guys are dressed in full hoodies, glasses, and mask over their face, and they're, as we saw in some of these other videos, standing outside institutions, banks, putting cameras, you know, on the employees. But what I'm saying is that they're upping their game. They've taken it from the street into their workplace, their offices, administrative buildings. And that's the differences on these things, is where the public forum, sidewalks and stuff like that are public, where nobody has a reasonable expectation of privacy, as they say. It doesn't mean that they can record people on the street and then post it for profit. So there's some things there. A lot of these guys, you'll notice, are posting civilian reactions, civilians that are putting their hands right in the camera and saying, I don't want to be recording, and they're posting them anyway. And these guys are making buku money on this. Anti-capitalists making buku capitalism bucks. Go figure, right? But anyways, I want to pick up, and I basically wanted to get that stipulation out on how they're taking this from the street. It isn't just recording officers and people on the street doing their jobs. They're taking it to the next level, and they're going to keep taking things to the next level, and they're going to have to keep taking things to the next level. It's kind of what my warning is too in this, is that, you know, we all know that when you get a hit, you know, doing stuff like this, when these guys are getting all these hits, millions of views in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars in revenue per month in some cases, in many cases, to stay relevant, to stay on the edge, just to stay current and to keep the buzz going, they're going to have to keep up in their game. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. You know, we left off on the last one, you know, talking about Sean Reyes and how, you know, he got arrested with a sheriff. He wound up taking a deal, had to write a letter of apology. I kind of showed that. I'll show it again here in a second, but I kind of want to start this show off here with a quick video on another big instance that he's been involved with, you know, and an officer, this state trooper sergeant. It's in the news. It's still in the courts. It's a big deal. He keeps posting stuff all over Facebook about it. But this is the kind of thing that he's done and what he's doing. And play the video here.
This overtime allegation. So as always, you always want to be on the lookout for any no trespassing signs, restricted area signs.
He's teaching other auditors what they need to be looking out for or what they're doing. Is that what he's doing? Is he training? is he training other auditors to what to look out for here? But you can see he's on private property. He's coming up to the sergeant's house at home.
I don't see why there would be in this neighborhood here, but you know, we just want to ask some questions, see what's going on with this overtime allegation. Hopefully he answers us. It says here, the Fahey's looks like we're in the right spot. Again, there aren't any no trespassing signs. We're just coming in peace to ask some questions. Oh, I'm currently being recorded, his Ring camera said.
Can I help you?
Hey, Sergeant Fahey, how are you?
You gotta get off my property. It's posted no trespassing.
Nope, there is no posted sign. There's no problem. Do you have any, let's go. Do you have any comment on the allegations that you are, I am moving. Do you have any comment on the allegations that you are receiving? Couldn't even get the question out. Ladies and gentlemen, he was so angry. Couldn't even get the question out. He says that there's no trespassing signs. Let's see. Let's see if there's no trespassing signs. What a coward. He can assault me in broad daylight while receiving taxpayer money. But the minute an independent journalist comes to his home, and he's probably going to try and get me unlawfully arrested now. As you could see, I moved back.
Unlawfully arrested. Because he says it's unlawful. Right?
Back his camera that says you are currently being recorded. Film this guy. You're crazy. What do you think I'm doing, you psycho? You have a weapon in your hand? What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't have any weapons. I'm a journalist. What do you think I'm doing, you psychopath? What do you think I'm doing?
Get off
What
my
do you
property
think I'm
right
doing?
now.
What do you think
Get
I'm
off my
doing?
property right now.
I'm off your property.
This is my property.
Well, do you see me
all
not
the
moving?
way to the cul-de-sac.
Calm down.
Get off
Get
my
that gun out
fucking
of your hand.
property.
Get that gun out of
Get
your hand,
off
you
my
psycho.
fucking property.
Get that gun
I'm
out of your hand, you
goddamn
psycho.
Connecticut State Trooper.
I don't care who you are.
are trespassing
I don't
on
care
my
who you are.
fucking property.
I don't care who you
Get
are.
off my fucking
I don't
property.
care who you are.
Right now.
You spit in my
Get off
face.
my property
You're
right
going
now.
to jail now.
Get
Look
off
at
my
this.
property
Look
right
at
now.
this. He spit in my
Get off
face.
You're
You're
right
going
in
to
my
jail.
face. I'm spitting as I'm talking to you.
No, you spit
Get
in
off
my
my
face.
property
You spit in
right
my face.
now.
You spit in my face.
Get off my
You're
property
going to jail.
right now.
I'm going.
Get off my property.
I've been going.
Right
Since the
now.
moment you told me.
Get off
That's
my
not
property.
how criminal trespass
right
works,
now.
psycho.
Get
You're
off
a
my
psycho,
property
bro.
right
Look
now.
at the gun in his hand.
Would a reasonable person be doing this? Would a reasonable person do this in a with such confrontation with a state trooper who's armed, who's on his own property, and ordering continuously to get off? He's got one hand with a phone, the other one on his weapon, and Reyes is like inches from his face. He's backing up, but he's still in the face of this officer on his own property while he's telling him to back up. That's what I'm seeing. I'm not saying that everything that this trooper sergeant is doing is correct. I'm just saying that would a reasonable person, or I'm asking, would a reasonable person be doing what he's doing? Just a question.
Goddamn right. I'm a Connecticut State Trooper.
I don't care a shit who you are.
Trespassing on my property.
That doesn't matter. You can't
threatened
break
to
the law.
kill me.
I didn't.
You threatened to
You
kill me
lied.
online.
Right? No, I
Get
did
off my
not.
fucking
You're a
property
liar.
right now.
You are a liar.
I said that right.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
I have every right to go knock on somebody's door. There's no order of protection in place. There's nothing there. And he told me to leave, and I immediately left.
Yep.
That's it.
So is there an order of protection? Do we know that?
I don't know that.
Okay, so
he wouldn't let me in. He closes it on my... And then look,
this happened recently, or?
break the law.
Call ambulance, please.
Sure.
The cops, man. He's a bad cop. I mean, I'm not asking you to, They would only not want you to say that. Showed the sergeant here on camera. So, what's gonna happen with that?
So we went through the assault statute specifically, and there's nothing that specifically states that spitting on somebody is an assault unless it caused you physical pain. The only thing that assault fits is physical pain. And that's under the exception of if you spit on an officer, then that is when bodily fluids become involved.
So he could spit on me, in my face and in my mouth, and that's not against the law?
Remember Reyes spit on that lieutenant at Elmira Correctional Facility. That was on video on my last show. Remember that?
Circumstances, I'm saying that it doesn't really fit the assault charge.
So what happened if I spit on you?
Well, then you would get arrested because I'm an officer. You can't spit on an officer because in the assault on an officer charge, bodily fluids are included.
So there is no charge. You're telling me, as a sergeant of the Groton Police Department, you're telling me there is no charge for a grown man spitting in another grown man's
telling
face.
you that it doesn't fit assault.
Well, what?
We're gonna deal with that after we deal with this.
Even if he did spit in that guy's face.
I don't care, man.
Even if he did spit in that guy's face, right? What else did he have to push the distance? I'm not saying that I agree with what that sergeant did, but what other option was available to him with both hands occupied, one with a cell phone and the other one with a gun, to create distance from him that Reyes was not allowing? Because Reyes was in his face literally inches, right? I mean, let's just... Right there. I mean, he's trying to get him off his property. Do you want somebody that close in your face that appears to you to be unhinged, if it was you, somebody banging on your door, coming to your family on your property, now, would it make a difference if this guy knew that this was an ex-con? If this guy was an ex-con, an ex-felon, an ex-violent felon at that, with a grudge against law enforcement and with an axe to grind, would it make any difference in this guy's mind here if he was aware of that? If indeed that was the case. Just ask. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But here, he's got "We the People" on his hat and is on his shirt there, right? So here's what happens.
This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
All that for you.
I guess he's getting unlawfully arrested, like he said, right?
He didn't even do anything. He didn't even do anything.
Anyways, I want to just see that. Kind of ride that out with me. If you haven't seen anything on what these guys do, just kind of let it soak in a little bit what these guys are doing and how they're provoking people, provoking officers in particular. Doesn't matter if you're on duty or off duty, I guess, at this point, does it? They're going to come right up to their house, bang on your house, bring it to you, your house, and your family. Just be aware. They're up in their game. Anyways, yeah, we got that. I wanted to show you another thing here. Yeah. Okay. We got this First Amendment watch here. Reyes' lawsuit against New York City, no record policy inside police facilities. Now, he was down in New York, this same guy, Paul Reyes, Long Island audit guy, was down in New York City. He's inside. He's pushing the issue, just like on another one of the shows that we showed yesterday. He was pushing back on codes or laws or ordinances or whatever to say no recording in public places or in public buildings, police buildings. Because he's got this Right to Record Act, the Right to Monitor Act. He keeps mentioning over and over again, and because they think that they're on a sidewalk, if the sidewalk goes into a building, you know, that they can just walk right in. That it's public property, that they can just walk right in. If it's a public building, that they can just walk right in. A government building, post office, library, doesn't matter. I mean. But controversial First Amendment auditors test the right to film in public spaces. This is on the First Amendment watch. They got, let's see, First Amendment auditor sues New York Police Department after arrest, filming inside the precinct lobby. Just to give you a little update on what this is, in April of 2023, Reyes was arrested after this guy's been arrested a multitude of times for, you know, misdemeanors or whatever, infractions and misdemeanors and related to his auditing, right? Reyes was recording when the two New York Police Department officers advised him that recording was prohibited. Referring to a sign posted in the lobby, Reyes recorded the infraction until he was put in handcuffs. Right. So he's been arrested multiple times, just like we saw that sheriff, not deputy, but a sheriff, making that note that he had taken a deal to write a letter of apology, which I don't know, still don't know if he's ever told his followers about, right? The Daily Beast, this is from the Daily Beast, or Audits Dangerous, and this is where I'm kind of going. Auditors maintain that their intent is to merely film public places and police officers undisturbed. Public places. Public places is one thing. Public forums is another. Just keep that in mind. But their critics say that they often act to provoke a negative response and that their tactics are intimidating. Yeah. There's a legitimate concern that some of these encounters could spiral into violent situations. And this is where I'm coming from at the kind of the lead into this show today, is that they're up in their game. And if you, it's with anything. It's just like with anything, physical, mental, psychological, drugs, same thing. You'll take more and more and more drugs to get the same high. That's what why a lot of people fall into become bad addicts of drugs. You are on the edge on anything, and you, no matter what you're doing, if you're racing, and you start out with go-karts, then you want to go to the next size up, then you want to go to the next size up, and these guys are the thrill. Here, what happens when they're, all their watchers, they're millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers and millions in views that they're getting now, when you become disinterested, then you're going to have to, like the Happy Days thing, jump the shark to get people to come back or keep watching, or at least they're going to try. It's just kind of a natural thing that happens, right? Just something to be aware of, that's all. It's all back of your head kind of thing. They're right. I said right. They're naturally going to have to keep up in the game. More serious, even deadly, revolutionary confrontations will be needed and called for. Nor would it be anything new as this 2011 video from Cop Block, a revolutionary organization founded by two anarchists. Even Wikipedia has it on there that this Cop Block was founded by two anarchists, But I got this show, 95,000 subscribers. This, I'm telling you. And here's the thing. Another thing I want to get across too is you'll see these guys have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers with tens, hundreds, or even millions of views. And it's all over it's all over social media. It's all over social media. TikTok, but most of it, X, TikTok, and YouTube. And most people that are on, a lot of people that are on social media never even aware of any of this stuff that's been going on. A lot of people in law enforcement not aware that this shit's even going on. I was unaware of this until it happened at a correctional facility that I worked at, and the officers there were hit there by these guys. So, but that's how social media works. Social media works by clicks or whatever, the algorithms, whatever. If all the buttons and stuff that you're clicking is what you get. So what social media does too is it divides our society into a multitude of siloed interests, siloed collectives with siloed interests. At many, if not most cases, in conflict with each other. And social media is used as a central planning, like a social engineering type of thing to get the masses of the crowds to whatever. It can be very manipulative. And a lot of these shows that say they have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of views may or may not even really be the truth. It probably isn't. And a lot of these guys are real popular. Well, there's ways to buy viewers, buy followers, or whatever, Or if you're pushing the agenda that these social media giants, Rumble, doesn't matter which one, YouTube, they're all the same. They're all pushing a giant agenda. So if you're consistent with an agenda that they're pushing, they're going to promote you. They're going to put you out there. They're going to put you in the face of everybody who's interested in that kind of thing that you're doing. And anybody who's not pushing the agenda, or don't even have to be pushing against it, but if you're not pushing the agenda or part of the controlled dissent, that's also part of the narrative that they're pushing. You're not going to be platformed at all. It's just by happenstance. But this is one of the reasons why I'm putting this out there, to make people aware of it that aren't in these circles. All these people that's all they see is this shit. And what it does is it promotes a kind of, as Dr. Jonathan Cooey has put out there, a false consensus, a illusion of consensus. If all these things are getting so many hits and they're getting so many followers, then it gets put out there and people will see, wow, this is what people think. This is the popular thing. And it becomes apparently popular, if not actually popular, to go up against law enforcement and police and embarrass the shit out of them to make them look as freaking impotent as possible to further agendas, including revolutionary agendas. Just want to put that out there. This is just another way social media is manipulating illusions of consensus that may or may not even be there, that probably aren't there. Just something to consider and keep in the back of your mind too about all this. But I wanted you to watch this video. It's 11 minutes long. I want to watch some of it, if not all of it, so that you can get where we are in the mindset of what some of these people are doing.
When should you shoot a cop? That question.
Yeah. Let that soak in.
Even without an answer, makes most law-abiding taxpayers go into knee-jerk conniptions. The indoctrinated masses all race to see who can be first and loudest to proclaim that it is never okay to forcibly resist law enforcement. In doing so, they also inadvertently demonstrate why so much of human history has been plagued by tyranny and oppression. In an ideal world, cops would do nothing except protect people from thieves and attackers, in which case shooting a cop would never be justified. In the real world, however, far more injustice, violence, torture, theft, and outright murder has been committed in the name of law enforcement than has been committed in spite of it. To get a little perspective, try watching a documentary or two about some of the atrocities committed by the regimes of Stalin or Lenin or Chairman Mao or Hitler or Pol Pot or any number of other tyrants in history. Pause the film when the jackboots are just about.
Yeah, the tyrants of history. Remember Reyes' shirt, resist tyranny or tyranny. This is being equated to law enforcement today. Just so you know how you're seen, how officers are seen, how officers and police in general are understood, law enforcement in general and the prison system at large are understood in the eyes of the revolution for there's no other, it's what it is. It's a revolution.
To herd innocent people into the cattle cars, or just about to gun them down as they stand on the edge of a ditch, and then ask yourself the question, when should you shoot a cop? Keep in mind the evils of those regimes were committed in the name of law, and as much as the statement may make people cringe,
the whole thing about anarchy is the law. They're against the state. There wouldn't be law if there wasn't a state. There wouldn't be a state if there wasn't a constitution. So there got to be a constitution, yet they use the constitution as a weapon against itself and the state that it ordains. You see where I'm going? But this is the tyranny, and this is what they're correlating law enforcement as today in this video. This is still up. This is still up on YouTube. I mean, I just found this the other day.
the history of the human race would have been a lot less gruesome if there had been a lot more cop killers around to deal with the state mercenaries of those regimes.
just so that you're aware this is out there. This isn't anything new. This is 12 years ago. And like they've been saying, they're going to up their game. And if they do up their game, it's not going to be anything new because the game's already been up for a long time. They're not going to be breaking any new ground.
Now, people don't mind when you point out the tyranny that has happened in other countries, but most have a hard time viewing.
I remember when that happened, Tiananmen Square. I remember watching that guy stand in front of that tank.
Their own country, their own government, and their own law enforcers in any sort of objective way. Having been trained to feel a blind loyalty to the ruling class of the particular piece of dirt they live on, also known as patriotism, and having been trained to believe that obedience is a virtue, the idea of forcibly resisting law enforcement is simply unthinkable to many. Literally, they can't even think about it. And humanity has suffered horribly because
we're thinking about it, digesting it for what it is.
Because of it. It is a testament to the effectiveness of authoritarian indoctrination that literally billions of people throughout history have begged and screamed and cried in the face of authoritarian injustice and oppression, but only a tiny fraction have ever actually lifted a finger to try to stop it. Even when people can recognize tyranny and oppression, they still usually talk about working within the system, the same system that's responsible for the tyranny and the oppression. People want to believe that the system will, sooner or later, provide justice. The last thing they want to consider is that they should illegally resist, that if they want to achieve justice, they must become criminals and terrorists.
An anarchist doctrine. And Cornell University prison education program has been teaching inmates this for the past 12 to 15 years anyways. I've got the curriculums here that they were teaching. Anarchist doctrine tips everything that we know about our society and law enforcement, our military, and how, traditions and founding principles and everything. The morality of our founding principles, okay? It tips everything topsy-turvy, literally topsy-turvy. The people getting arrested, people being sentenced and doing time in prison are not the criminals. They're the victims of the real criminal and the real violence, which is the state. This is an anarchist version of what's happening today. It's topsy-turvy. This is how they see things. Our military is just, and our police officers, correct, and law enforcement officers at large, be it in or outside our prisons, it doesn't matter. They are the bulldogs or whatever. They're the guardians and the enforcers of that law and the enforcers of that tyranny and violence of the state. Domestically, where our military is the enforcers of that, and they refer to it, it's domestically, it's capitalism and capitalist system, and then around the world on a global scale, it's referred to as imperialism. You can read the Weather Underground 1969 manifesto. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows, and you can get a good idea where they're coming from with just reading just that one document. But it's consistent throughout all of it. And Cornell Prison Education Program is actually teaching this shit to the inmates in prison because they want to be progressive. But what they're doing is they're coming into the prisons and they're teaching these inmates very, race-oriented critical race theory, and they're saying that really the only way you're ever going to be able to be truly emancipated is to burn it down. That's it. Then these guys go on the street when they get out. Prison system is supposed to be, as we understand it, rehabilitating the inmates, rehabilitating, people in prison so that once they get back on the street, for those that are going back on the street, they can become productive members of that society and not get in trouble again, right? But how are they to understand it when you have professors, academic credentialed people coming in here giving academic credentials to a revolutionary doctrine that says you shouldn't go out and be rehabilitated to take part in that society and be a productive member of that society that needs to be burned down? Can you see the conflict of it? Can you see the conflict? It's not the inmates. The social or political prisoners aren't the criminal. It's society is criminal. There's no need for change or rehabilitation on the part of the inmate. It's society that needs to change or be eliminated. Just want to kind of point that out.
Which is what anyone who resists legal injustice is automatically labeled. But history shows all too well that those who fight for freedom and justice almost always do so illegally, i.e., without the permission of the ruling class.
To fight for freedom and justice is to fight against the state. To fight against the police, the enforcers of that state. Even when the state is as progressive as the Hochul administration for like New York State or any other progressive state. Even when those governors and administrations are pushing the same progressive collectivism. So that's the other problem that law enforcement has, too. You got to take into consideration if you're an officer on the street. Not only is this revolutionary progressive collectivism, anarchism included, prominent on the street, it's prevalent within the halls of justice itself now with criminal reform, criminal justice reform. A lot of it addresses the quote-unquote systemic racism or systemic of everything about America, including the Constitution itself. So this all kind of ties into a bigger picture. It's just something to be aware of when you understand where these people are, and you can see where some of these people are. Not all of them, but you got to take it into consideration because it's out there. And it's not only present, it's prevalent. That's what I'm trying to get. Just one of the reasons why I'm doing this.
If politicians think that they have the right to impose any law they want, and cops have the attitude that as long as it's called law, they will enforce it, what is there to prevent complete tyranny? Not the consciences of the lawmakers or their hired thugs, obviously, and not any election
cops, hired thugs,
or petition to the politicians. When tyrants define what counts as law, then by definition, it is up to the lawbreakers to combat tyranny. Pick any example of abuse of power, whether it's the fascist so-called war on drugs, the police thuggery that has become so common, the random stop.
The war on drugs was a progressive policy. Itself was a progressive policy.
And searches now routinely carried out in the name of security, such as at airports, border checkpoints that aren't even at the border, sobriety checkpoints, and so on, or any other example. Now, ask yourself the uncomfortable question. If it's wrong for cops to do these things, doesn't that imply that the people have a right to resist such actions? And of course, state mercenaries don't take kindly to being resisted, even non-violently. If you question their right to detain you, interrogate you, search you, invade your home, and so on, you are very likely to be tasered, physically assaulted, kidnapped, put in a cage, or shot. If a cop decides to treat you like livestock, whether he does it legally or not, you will usually have only two options: submit or kill the cop. You can't resist a cop just a little and get away with it. He will always...
submit or kill the cop. Now, if this is anything new to a lot of people, I mean, when I was working, I came across flyers and zines and magazines, outright magazines that were from organizations like MIM Prisons or Maoist International Movement, which had, kind of a tangent spin-offs like Fire to the Prisons, where they called for resistance, including the assault of nursing staff in prisons, and they counted it as, it's in my book, I go over it in my book, Last Call for Liberty, actually, some of that maybe if I do another show on this, I'll get that out and just tell you just how far these guys are going and what they consider legitimate resistance. You got to remember, and a couple quotes I did in the last show that I did from that guy Zach Brown from RAIM, Revolutionary something. RAIM was the name of it. And he said, violence against the police is always a violence of liberation. That's the revolutionary doctrine. This is what he's going over here. Right?
Always call in more of his fellow gang members until you are subdued or dead. Basic logic dictates that you either have an obligation to let law enforcers have their way with you, or you have the right to stop them from doing so, which will almost always require killing them. Politely asking fascists to not always require killing them. Stop them. Let law enforcers have their way with you, or you have the right to stop them from doing so, which will almost always require killing them. Politely asking fascists to not be fascist has a very poor track record throughout history. Consider the recent Indiana Supreme Court ruling, which declared that if a cop tries to illegally enter your home, it's against the law for you to do anything to stop him. Aside from the patent absurdity of it, since it amounts to giving thugs with badges permission to break the law and makes it a crime.
Officers don't have rights. Officers have powers. Civilians have rights. People on the street have rights. We the people have rights. Officers are people that have rights, but as the officer, you are granted powers, not rights. And
for you to defend yourself against a criminal, if he has a badge, consider the logical ramifications of that attitude. There were once some words written on a piece of parchment, those words now known as the Fourth Amendment, that said that you have the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures at the hands of government agents. In Indiana today, what could that possibly mean? The message from the ruling class is quite clear and utterly insane. It amounts to this: we don't have the right to invade your home without probable cause, but if we do, you have no right to stop us, and we have the right to arrest you if you try. Why not apply that to the rest of the Bill of Rights while we're at it? You have the right to say what you want, but if we use violence to shut you up, you have to let us. I can personally attest to the fact that that is the attitude of the U.S. so-called Department of Justice. Or maybe, you have the right to have guns, but if we try to forcibly and illegally disarm you and you resist, we have the right to kill you. Ask Randy Weaver or the Branch Davidians about that one. You have the right to not testify against yourself, but when we coerce you into confessing, sometimes called law, on his side, if you have the right to do A, it means that if someone tries to stop you from doing A, even if he has a badge and a politician's scribble, sometimes called law, on his side, you have the right to use whatever amount of force is necessary to resist that person. That's what it means to have an unalienable right. If you have the unalienable right to speak your mind, a la the First Amendment, then if all else fails, you have the right to kill government agents who try to shut you up. If you have the unalienable right to be armed, then if all else fails, you have the right to kill government agents who try to disarm you.
The act of self-defense is not an act to kill anybody. The act of self-defense, any officer that ever uses deadly physical force is never the objective. It's never the objective to kill anybody. It's to disable, to stop, disable. The intent is to stop and disable, never to kill. These guys are saying people have a right to kill with the intent to kill. There's a difference. There's a difference.
If you have the right to not be subjected to unreasonable searches and seizures, then if all else fails, absolutely anything they want to you, your home, your family, your neighbors, and so on, which is often necessary and rational, and feeling a moral obligation to go along with.
But anyway, you get the idea. This is out there. This is out there. When should you shoot a cop? This is out there. How many views did that have? Almost 1 million views. I mean, it's 12 years old too. It's nothing new. This is nothing new. So they're saying that, you know, they're warning that audits could potentially be dangerous because they're going to keep up in their game, and if they did, there's nothing new. Okay. Now I wanted to kind of point out too is that I want to get into this lawsuit here with Reyes, this Long Island audit guy. He goes down to New York City, right? And he goes in there and he's recorded in the police precinct or in the police lobby where there is no rules, regulations that don't allow anybody to record in there, but he's going to do it anyways. So he gets arrested. And I kind of want to go over this lawsuit a little bit because it has it's relevant to a lot of the other shit that's going on. Reyes versus the city of New York. This is it right here. I mean, this is where I got this. Justina, you know, right out of the courts there. Court documents. It was argued November 13th, 2024. It was decided on June 18th, 2025. Really not that long ago, a month and a half ago, or a couple months ago, right? Opinion summary. Plaintiff Sean Reyes, who frequently posts videos of infractions with police on YouTube, challenged the New York City Police Department policy that prohibits video recording inside police facilities. Reyes, who had been arrested twice for recording inside police station houses, argued that the policy violated his rights under the First Amendment and the New York State and New York City Right to Record Acts. That's that piece of legislation he's always referring to. He sought a preliminary injunction to prevent the city from enforcing the policy and to remove the signs stating the policy. The United States District Court for the Southern District of New York granted Reyes a preliminary injunction based on his state and local law claims, despite finding that he was unlikely. Let me see. They granted it despite finding that he was unlikely to succeed on his First Amendment claim. The court concluded that Reyes demonstrated a likelihood of success on the merits of his Right to Record Act claims, irreparable harm, and that the public interest favored an injunction. Given the lack of clear, this is the court, what they put in there, given the lack of clear guidance from New York State courts on whether the Right to Record Acts afford a right to record inside police station houses, the Second Circuit certified the following question to the New York Courts of Appeals. Does either New York civic rights law or New York City Administration Code afford individuals the right to video record law enforcement activities inside public facilities, specifically inside the publicly accessible lobbies of police station houses, notwithstanding the New York NYPD policy forbidding such recording? The decision on the appeal is reserved pending the response from the New York Court of Appeals. Yeah, so now they've taken it from the streets and they're going into the public buildings. Right. Background. They have a background in here. The NYPD's anti-recording policy. There's a little background on that. The challenged anti-recording policy dates to June 2018, when NYPD ensued procedures in its patrol guide. That procedure, titled when a member of the service encounters an individual observing, photographing, and or recording police activity, instructs officers that individuals in fact have a right to lawfully observe and or record police activities, including but not limited to detentions, searches, arrests, or uses of force. Consistent with that right to record, the procedure enumerates guidelines telling officers do not, for example, discourage recording, obstruct cameras, or delete pictures from an observer's recording device. At the same time, however, the procedure states that the right to record does not obtain wherever police activity occurs. I mean, for instance, if a cop's taking a shit, does he get to go in there and record a guy taking a shit? I mean that's a hyperbole, but what I'm saying, it has to stop somewhere, right? Rather, it extends to individuals in public places such as streets, sidewalks, and parks, as well as private property in which the individual has a legal right to be present. It extends to individuals in public places such as streets, sidewalks, and parks, as well as private property in which the individual has a legal right, they have a permission to be there. But just because it's a public place doesn't make it a public forum. Right? Just throwing that out there. In the particular provision challenged, in this case, the anti-recording policy, the procedure explicitly states that there is no right to record within New York PD facilities and provides a 3-step process for dealing with persons who insist on doing so. Just so you're aware. Members of the public are not allowed to photograph and or record police activity within police department facilities. Members of the service may order any member of the public who is photographing or recording within department facilities to stop such activity. If such a person refuses to stop, they then should be ordered to leave the premise. So they have to refuse to stop recording, and then they refuse to leave the premise. If such a person refuses to leave the premise, members of the service may take proper enforcement action under trespass statutes. Proper as per the letter of the law, or proper as per the politics of the administrators. Just throwing that out there. Because we all know that they're not always consistent. Oh, you can do that, but if you do, you're going to be called on the carpet. You're going to be called on the carpet up at the main office, right? Some 2 years after insurance of procedure, New York State on July 14th, 2020, and New York City on August 14th, 2020, enacted their respective right to record acts. Okay. Reyes has also been, I just wanted to put that out there that he recorded, so they kind of kicked it back. They kicked it back to the courts to clarify, because he has a right to record, but it doesn't clarify. So they kicked it back for clarification. Just kind of putting that, just showing you that. Sean Reyes, the guy that calls himself the Long Island Auditor, right? He's also been platformed on multiple police officer and or progressive, supposedly pro-police podcasts to praise and thank Sean so their followers can understand him. Not to mention wittingly or unwittingly, as Reyes puts it, give him credibility. Yeah. These police officers that platform him on their show or pro law enforcement shows, they platform him. He's saying, you're giving me credibility. I want to let's see. All right. This is a live stream special guest, Long Island Audit, Sean Paul Reyes. This show is Two Cops, One Donut. They only have like 16,000 subscribers. This happened just in June 2025. And then he also broadcasted it on his, Reyes broadcasted it on his, where he has almost 1 million subscribers, basically. 950,000 subscribers, right? So I don't know. Maybe they put him on there just to get some hits. I don't know. But anyways, at around 2,400 recordings, Sean allegedly never having been tried or convicted of a crime, which Reyes does not refute. Let's go to 2,400 on this. And I'm sorry for the commercials.
So that is where cops get themselves in trouble all the time. And there is a huge ignorant blind spot that cops have where they think because they're filling out a form for their department that they now suddenly have a right to your ID. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get across. If they're not going to listen to you, Sean, who's never been charged and convicted of any criminal charges,
Right.
then they need to listen to me, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get across. If they're not going to listen to you, Sean, who's never been charged and convicted of any criminal charges,
Right.
then they need to listen to me, Matt, Banning, all these guys of it across the department that they now suddenly have a right to your ID. And that.
Here's another difference. Two things here. Reyes, on with all these cops, former cops or whatever, talking about how one thing is that the officer all of a sudden thinks he has a right to your ID. The other, Sean Reyes, who's never been committed of a crime. Aside from all the arrests that he's had affiliated with doing First Amendment audits, I presume that they're aware of. Right? The lawsuits, the multitude of lawsuits that this guy, it's kind of his MO. Goes out there, and that's what people are just as afraid or more of that, because the courts are giving this guy legitimacy, giving this whole thing of legitimacy, even though the anarchist doctrine underlying a lot of what these people are doing would disintegrate the courts themselves. The courts are still giving it, but anyways, he's never been committed of a crime. But I want to touch on really quick. I want to touch on the officers thinking that they have a right to the ID. Now, there's officers on the street, or we don't live in a police state. We don't live in a police state, and we don't want to live in a police state. We don't want anybody to we don't want to live in a society where soldiers or cops or whoever are walking the street demanding your papers, show me your papers, you know what I mean, kind of thing, right? Schultz from Hogan's Heroes. But anyways, we don't want that. But it's kind of how corrections officers in prisons actually have more power than officers on the street, in a way, because in a correctional setting, correctional facility setting, where inmates have to carry ID on them at all times. It's a statute. They have to have their ID on them at all times and have to present it upon order of an officer. Give me your ID. Show me your ID. They have to present it. Doesn't have to be a reasonable cause to believe anything. On the street, it's you can't really do that as an officer, or shouldn't be able, in my one of my rare opinions on these things. But if we're going to live in a free society, that really can't happen, right? You can't just go out there, give me your ID, show me your ID. You have to have whatever. The other thing is that in a correctional facility, not only a cop, if you're not doing anything wrong, cop just can't walk up to you and start ordering you to do stuff if it's not an actual lawful direction. If you're going to live in a free society. In a prison setting, the officer walks up and orders you to do something, you can be written up for disobeying a direct order. On the street, you can't really do that, but you can get arrested for disobeying or non-compliance to a lawful direction, which is kind of a legal terminology between the difference in order or lawful direction, because your lives may depend on your compliance to that once it becomes a lawful direction kind of thing. You know what I mean? But officers in prison, you can, whenever there's movement in a facility and you're out there and you're on point, or you're out there watching movement, you're monitoring movement, an inmate is, whenever they're moving from the housing locking location or to their program, their job, or to rec or to chow or wherever it is, you randomly pull guys out, put them on the wall, shake them down. That's policy and procedure. Now, just like we were talking about before, is that the officers have to, they can lawfully execute the law, but you can lawfully execute pulling guys out randomly on movements today and putting them on the wall and shaking them down and asking for their ID. And if they don't comply, they can be written up for disobeying a direct order, not presenting your ID upon order, not having your ID. So corrections officers can have actually in their everyday job description execute power officers on the street don't have or shouldn't have or can't have. So when somebody says doesn't comply, a lot of times it takes a minute for an officer to a corrections officer to adjust the thought train from what you are inside to outside. There's that little bit of a difference there. So with that into consideration, I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody's kind of consideration, because I think there's something to learn from that, or just to be aware of that. And there's another thing to keep in the back of your mind when you're out there doing these things. But again,
that's one of the things that we're not at fault all the time. And there is a huge ignorant blind spot that cops have where they think because they're filling out a form for their department that they now suddenly have a right to your ID. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get across. If they're not going to listen to you, Sean, who's never been charged and convicted of any criminal charges, then they need to list.
Ace is right. Right. Okay. Is that true? Is that true? Well, I got something to show you. I got something to show you here. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. Let me see. All right. I Googled Sean Reyes audit. Okay. And I get, police First Amendment audit. I just Google police First Amendment audit. Didn't even Google Sean Reyes, and he comes up. Let's see what comes up. And this is all over. This isn't just on this is on Google. And there's images, and this is the kind of thing that are out there. Reyes isn't the only one, right? But that's him right there. The First Amendment auditors aim to cancel. That's an article that came out in the Post. Yeah. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it says First Amendment auditors aim to cancel cops via YouTube. Just kind of so that you guys are out there armed with camera and phones. Prickly attitudes, a new generation of agitators is making big bucks by getting in the face of officers in public, then posting their clashes on YouTube clicks and money. They're not just a pain, as you can see. The cops are saying that they're just a pain. They're more than just a pain. It says Long Island provoker, they call him in this article, Sean Paul Reyes, 30, said he raked in $8,000 in his first month as an auditor. When his first month, right? A gig he picked up after a pandemic, he said, cost him his warehouse job. But then we've got this guy down here, just so that you have a little bit of idea. What's he says Reyes refuses to see, his most recent stunt came in June 12th in Danbury, Connecticut, where Reyes began filming at the public library. They were doing so prohibited without permission and privacy. He was in Danbury, Connecticut for that too, as long as that Connecticut, I don't know if he was in Danbury, but that Connecticut state trooper that he alleges spit in his face, right? But he says Reyes refuses to budge, prompting a confrontation with Danbury police. He quickly posted the clip for his nearly 30,000 YouTube subscribers, snagging more than 17,000 views. Boy, I tell you, he's got about 1 million now, right? Close to 1 million now. All right. Yeah. Yeah, these guys are suing too. There's lawsuits. They keep suing people. That's one of the other reasons why, you know, you got to be on point, because they're looking. Some of these guys are fishing to be arrested. They're going to tip you. They're going to tip you over. That's what they're trying to do, because when you're mad, you kind of, sometimes you lose the, you got to be like water off a duck's back kind of thing, because when you get mad, that's one thing that I remember about being an officer. You know, one of the things that, because you never know when shit hits the fan, who is going to have your back when shit really hits the fan, you know? And you don't know who's going to be the guy who's going to have your back, and you don't know whose guy you're going to turn and see the underside of his Reeboks as he's running away. You don't know. And kind of one of the ways that, you know, we officers feel each other out is that we try to tip people. You know, they'll try to tip you. You know, they'll get you when you're a new guy coming in. You know, you kind of break. Older guys, seasoned officers will come in and they'll see if they can tip you. You know, see how you act and your thinking process on whether you tip and you get mad, or, you know, whatever. You can rat other officers out for what they're doing to your sergeant or whatever, that kind of thing, to see who you are. Just the ball busting, you know. The ball busting has its pros and cons, but at the same time, what officers are trying to do in that is they're trying to feel each other out to see who's going to have their back and who isn't. And one of the ways they do it is to see if they can tip you. And when somebody tips you, just loses it, snaps, and just freaking goes off and just is mad and just starts yelling and screaming and spitting and just, fuck, he loses it, right? You know, it's funny. It's not funny, but at the same time, they're going to try and tip you. And if you do tip, you lose, they win. And the same thing applies in the bigger picture in society at large. Anger is a weakness. It's a weakness. It's not a strength. Although anger you need to think smoothly and process what you're doing and go according to your training. But at the same time, you can't get mad and you get tipped, because when you lose it, and inmates know that too. Inmates, criminal element in society. These guys are doing the same thing. It's the same thing that these auditor guys are doing. They're walking up to you and they're trying to tip you. Because that's the weakness that they can take advantage of to further their agenda, their cause, and pad their pockets, their wallets. I'm just saying, putting this out there for your consideration, you know, that's all I'm trying to do. But you got Reyes in here. He's one of these guys. I just Googled audits and all they put up. It's all over social media, right? The other thing is, too, is I Google Paul Reyes. He's on there, so I go Paul Reyes audits, and I go down through here, and I come across this picture. Oops. Oh, shit. Sorry. Come across this picture. That's a mugshot. I mean, we've all seen 1,000 of these things if we've seen one. It's a mugshot. It's also very similar to what the photos on inmate IDs look like, state IDs. Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. And that's published. That's right. I got that right off Google. Public space, you know, right? So, yeah. So it is known that he's had mugshots. If not being an all-out ex-felon, okay. Because I can tell you right there. I mean, I can't say whether that's an actual inmate ID or not. I can't do that. But what I can tell you is that it looks like one. I've seen a lot of them in 25 years. So, but just so you can see that. I want you to. I'm going to. Let me see. Okay, here's another one. No, that's not the one I wanted. I'll get to this for a second here. Okay. First Amendment Auditors, Avenger Sean Paul Reyes versus Worst Cops. This is Cop Talk Live, like I was telling you before. He's been on other cop shows. He's been on a lot of cop shows. He's telling these guys are assuming he's never been arrested. Well, you've never been arrested. Well, yeah. He lets it go. He doesn't say anything. He just lets it go. But here's we'll go to 23-22. I wanted to hear a couple minutes of this.
Are you looking to establish your business using an address other than your home? Wish you had a professional.
We have law enforcement. I don't even know if it's the majority, but from your Instagram stories and DM on anyone really, but it's that.
We listened to a couple minutes of this, and you gotta remember this guy. He's on another guy's show, who's a cop or was a cop or whatever. But listen to this.
What they're saying, they're condoning spitting another civilian spitting in somebody's face. It's not illegal in Connecticut, apparently.
I don't understand, because they that should be part of your defense as well too. Well, they didn't observe the crime that they're claiming you arrested, so I don't know why you went in cuffs. Here's a blatant question: why do you still fucking do this? Nothing's gonna change. Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you?
It's important to me because I know that there are law enforcement officers out there that do support me. That actually gives me more motivation. I've been invited to law enforcement agencies across the country. I've been invited regardless of what the majority of law enforcement, I don't even know if it's the majority, but from your Instagram stories and DMs, it seems like a lot of them who hate me. I still get invited to go to do trainings at police departments, district attorneys' offices, and I find a lot of satisfaction in that. It gives me credibility. It helps to bridge the gap. It shows that we're all just humans. We're supposed to all support the United States Constitution. I'm passionate about our constitutional rights. I'm passionate about high standards in law enforcement. Why? Because if not, they will turn into a Gestapo force that will rain hell on everyone.
This sound anything similar to they'll turn into a Gestapo force that will rain down on everyone? Does that sound any remotely familiar to something maybe we just heard from Cop Watch? I'm just pointing that out.
I think that it would behoove some people to spit in Brian Fahey's face, because they can't be arrested now. Off duty. Because clearly Connecticut said that if you spit on a police officer, you'll be arrested. But I see no reason why Brian Fahey should not be spit on off duty. in his private life if he's at the store because no cop.
Isn't he still a police officer? Not saying the law is right, but if that's the case, isn't he still a police officer off duty?
Cop showing up should ever arrest anybody. They weren't there. They're witness that.
Right.
Here poses the question.
That's a bad precedent. It really does, because if they don't charge him, and I'm not saying that they're not going to, there's a lot. We got over 25,000 signatures on the petition that I started late. I didn't even put it up right away. I didn't even know about this change.org thing, but already 25,000 petitions and 25,000 signatures in an hour. I'm sure thousands and thousands of phone calls and emails have been to the state's attorney. If they don't charge him, that is a license for everyone in Connecticut to spit on anyone's face. I'm not going to say Sergeant Brian Fahey. He has an order of protection on me. I never would wish violence on him, but on anyone really. But that's what they're saying. They're condoning spitting, a civilian, another civilian spitting in somebody's face. It's not illegal in Connecticut, apparently.
I don't understand, because they that should be part of your defense as well too. Well, they didn't observe the crime that they're claiming you arrested, so I don't know why you went in cuffs. Here's a blatant question: why do you still fucking do this? Nothing's going to change. Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you?
It's important to me because I know that there are law enforcement officers out there that do support me. That actually gives me more motivation. I've been invited to law enforcement agencies across the country. I've been invited regardless of what the majority of law enforcement, I don't even know if it's the majority, but from your Instagram stories and DMs, it seems like a lot of them who hate me. I still get
It's not about hate. It's not about hate.
invited to go do trainings at police departments, district attorneys' offices.
He's training police departments and district attorney offices. He's training police departments and district attorney offices. In what? What's he training them in? What's he training him in?
And I find a lot of satisfaction in that. It gives me credibility.
It's what gives him credibility. He's training officers and district attorney offices, and it's given him credibility. Wow. Really. I got this right here. I want to show you. I looked up, did a little digging here. I did a little digging. Okay. Are these police departments that I'll even show you one. I'll even show you one more. We just watch the first couple minutes of this one.
Introducing the new 2-in-1 ED plus testosterone treatment through HIMS. This daily dual action pill includes.
I was kind of excited because I've never really heard of Auditor doing a ride along with an officer.
Yeah, it feels crazy. I've never had a bulletproof vest on before.
Oh yeah.
He was like, "You got to put this on for your safety." I'm like,
I don't know if you're seeing this, but how close is this guy to the proximity of those weapons? And if he is a felon or an ex-felon, if this officer, is he aware that this guy is an ex-felon? Or potentially could be an ex-felon? Violent felon? Would that make a difference if he was a violent felon? A violent ex-con? Violent felon ex-con? Ex-offender, however you want to put it. Would it matter?
Like, okay. Hey, what's up guys? Long Island Audit here, back again with another video. Today I'm coming to you from Hubbard, Ohio, and I'm extremely excited for this video. I am doing a ride-along with Officer Pacifico of the Hubbard Police Department here. They have graciously allowed me to do a ride-along with Officer Pacifico. So we're just going to be driving around town, talking, having some conversation about the upcoming video I'm about to release. This is the police department that I did the First Amendment audit training at.
So he did a First Amendment audit training of this police department, and he's going to put out a video of it. I looked for it. It says episode 1 here. I looked for episode 2. I looked for that video. I couldn't find it. Maybe I'll find it. I don't know. But I'm going to show you some things that I've come across that show Reyes, and I'm going to show you some things to give us reasonable cause to believe, anyways, that he could be a ex-felon, ex-con, who was incarcerated on a violent felony charge. Would it make a difference to this officer to know that this guy is I don't know. Would it make a difference to you if you were that officer in that car with him? And would it make a difference that you were being trained by an ex-con in this on how to react to a situation that is fundamentally designed to, compromise not just the individual officers, but the whole of law enforcement? Not maybe for every single auditor out there doing this. There are a lot of guys out there. Maybe there's a couple of them out there that are innocently just doing, well, I'm just going to, push my First Amendment and Second Amendment rights. I don't know. And then just refuse all your orders or otherwise confrontationally approach law enforcement officers, But anyways, I got some information here for your consideration. Are these police departments, not to mention the DA offices that Reyes himself is speaking of here, aware that the guy they allegedly have training their officers and or officers in doing ride-alongs with them appears to be a Class A, that's not a B, that's Class A, felony. Violent felony offender. Anyways, Sean Reyes, okay? From here. This is where I got this information, okay? Suffolk, Mohawk, okay? New York inmate offender search. The following correctional supervision record was collected from the official State Department of Corrections website. This record may not reflect actual, complete, or up-to-date data, so keep that in mind. Sean Reyes is a 34-year-old who was listed as being under the supervision of the Department of Corrections in Mohawk Correctional Facility. Mohawk is a correctional facility somewhere there in, central New York, Oneida, Mohawk region, east of Syracuse. Right? He was sentenced, adjudicated in Suffolk County. He was listed on the State Department of Corrections' website below in relation to the criminal offense attempted robbery in the first on Tuesday, October 15th, 2013. To see more details, information on this person, including any new custody status, criminal offense in history, or time served in prison under state supervision, follow the official Department of Corrections link below. These are older links, but attempted. Yeah. So, name Sean Reyes, 34 years old. This is what they had. This is the, I took a screenshot of it just in case it disappeared online. I wanted to have a screenshot of it, but that's it. And I wanted to go over kind of a little bit here what attempted robbery first degree is, right? First, what is robbery? We got to know what robbery in the first degree is. So we go to fast law. I went to fast law. This right here. That's where I get this information from. New York robbery in the first degree. New York robbery in the first degree is the most serious New York robbery charge. The most serious of New York robbery charges. Elements of New York robbery in the first. Under New York penal law section 16015, a person is guilty of robbery in the first degree when she or he forcibly steals property and when in the course of the commission of the crime or immediate flight thereof, she or he or another participant in the crime, 1, causes serious physical injury to anyone who was not a participant in the crime, or is armed with a deadly weapon, or threatens the immediate use of a dangerous instrument, or displays what appears to be a pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, or other firearm. So in order to be a first degree, one of these things had to happen, right? Is the an attempted robbery in the second degree considered a violent crime in New York? There's a bunch of lawyers, just ask a questions and then lawyers at just trying to get an idea out there, just throwing this out there. This isn't absolute legal advice on any of these things. I'm just trying to get a feel for what the legal field is saying on these things, on these questions, okay? You got these lawyers here, criminal defense attorneys, okay? Attempted first and second degree robbery are, yes, considered violent and no, cannot be sealed under New York sealing laws. Now, New York State has a, what do they call it? Starting over, clean slate or something like that, where convicts get out of jail. It used to be at one time when you fill out a job application, every job application, it didn't matter how petty the job was, every job application you asked the question, are you or have you ever been incarcerated for committing a crime? Are you an ex-convict? Are you an ex-felon? Now it's illegal to ask that question because of this clean slate bill or a clean slate act or whatever they call it, because they want to give these guys a chance to get a job without their employers not giving them the job because they're an ex-convict, which would be a violation of human rights laws. But yeah, in human rights laws, I've done a lot of shows on what human rights actually are. It embodies world socialism, world collectivism, and I suggest that you dig into that a little bit if you want to understand human rights and human rights laws and how they conflict with our Constitution and our individual rights and liberty. But attempted first degree robbery are, yes, considered, first and second degree robbery are, yes, considered violent and no, cannot be sealed under new sealing laws. This guy's from New York, right? So they can seal the records or whatever. But if you're a felon, you can't have a gun. You can't use a gun in New York State. You can't get a pistol permit, you can't get a gun, you can't own a gun, you can't buy a gun, you can't even hunt with a gun. They allow under the Second Amendment for felons to be able to hunt with a bow and arrow or a muzzle loader. If you appeal to, I think you may have to appeal to the judge to allow you to hunt with a gun. But I think they allow you to have a muzzleloader to hunt with. But that's all. That's all you can have is a muzzleloader. You can't have rimfire or smokeless powder guns. It has to be black powder. Muzzleloaders. And that's why in that ride-along they have that guy sitting right next to those weapons right there. I don't. anyways, I just want to try to get an idea and get a consensus here from these law people. Yes, that is considered a violent felony offense. You can potentially look into whether you are eligible to apply for a certificate of relief disabilities and whether such certificate would assist in buying bulletproof vests. The guy wanted to buy a bulletproof vest. The guy who had that charge wanted to know if it was legal for him to buy a bulletproof vest. But in that, the question of whether attempted robbery, either in the first or second degree, is considered a violent crime, a violent felony. And attempted robbery in the first, this guy, Reyes, was arrested for attempted robbery in the first, remember, not second. So we got a little bit of a clarification on that. So, I mean, there could be a thing is that these records supposedly get sealed. Nobody's supposed to be a know about them, you know what I mean? Except for certain state agencies that might need them. But you can't not give him a job because he's an ex-convict. So, and then I got 4 different attorneys. There's this other lawyer in here, Letitia James. Oh, this is Letitia James. This is from the New York State Attorney General's office. The one that's being investigated, right? You will be ineligible to apply if any of the following are true. You will be ineligible to apply. Okay, this is sealing your criminal record. Okay, you want to seal your criminal record. Am I eligible to seal my conviction? Blah, blah, blah. She's answering that question. You will be ineligible to apply to have your records concealed if any of the following are true. You are required to register as a sex offender. Well, if you're a sex offender, you can't have your records sealed. You have an open criminal case. Well, wait a minute. All the arrests that he has, he just got arrested, aren't they open criminal cases? All of them? Doesn't say it has to be a felony case. It just says criminal case. You are, or if you are applying to seal an ineligible offense, including a violent felony. So you can't have it sealed if you've been committed of a violent felony. If you serve time for doing for being convicted of a violent felony, which robbery in the first degree is a violent felony according to these lawyers, right? Class A felony, homicide, felony, sex offense, sexual performance by a child offense, or a felonious attempt to conspiracy to commit any of these ineligible offenses, or a felonious attempt or conspiracy. So an attempted robbery in the first degree, an attempted Class A felony, which he was arrested for, is a violent Class A felony for which he is ineligible to have his record sealed, according to Letitia James, potentially a corrupt attorney general, right? Now to the attempted part, like I just said. The attempt to commit a crime, penal law. What is the attempt? What defines what the attempted charge is? Under our law, a person is guilty of an attempt to commit a crime when the intent to commit a crime he or she engages in conduct with tends to effect the commission of such a crime. So all it has to do is tend to effect the commission of a crime. The following term used in that definition have a special meaning. Intent means a conscious objective or purpose. Thus, a person acts with intent to commit a crime when his or her conscious objective or purpose is to commit that crime. Conduct which tends to effect the commission of a crime means conduct which comes dangerously close or very near to the completion of the intended crime. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If a person intends to commit a crime and engages in conduct which carries his or her purpose forward within dangerous proximity to the completion of his or her purpose forward with dangerous proximity to the completion of the intended crime, he or she is guilty of an attempt to commit that crime. In bold, it does not matter that the intended crime was not actually completed for the attempted charge. So attempted robbery in the first. He acted on it. Somebody either got hurt or he had a weapon. Or threatened to use a dangerous instrument. Well, it could have been anything, right? In order for you to find the defendant guilty of an attempt to commit the crime of, which you need to specify, the people are required to prove from all evidence in the case beyond a reasonable doubt each of the following three elements. They have to define each of the following three elements: that on or about the date in the county of whatever the defendant, give his name, intended to commit the crime of, specify whatever that is, right? That the defendant engaged in conduct which tended to effect the commission of that crime, and that specify strict liability element which raises degree of intent, and that if you find the person have proven beyond a reasonable doubt each of these elements, you must find the defendant guilty of the crime. That specifies strict liability element which raises degree of intent of the crime. If you find the people have not proven beyond a reasonable doubt any one or more of these elements, you must find the defendant not guilty in this crime. Okay, in the course of the attempted commission of the crime, okay, this is footnote 3, footnote. Okay, footnote 6, okay, that specifies strict liability elements which raises the degree of intended crime. Go down here, footnote 6, for example, for attempted robbery. In the first degree, the core crime in the first element would be robbery, and the third element would read that in the course of the attempted commission of the crime or immediate flight thereof, the defendant or another participant in the crime caused serious physical injury to specify was not a participant in the robbery. They caused serious physical harm to somebody that was not involved with the attempted robbery. So you have to find him guilty with beyond a reasonable doubt of all those things. Sean Reyes was found guilty and served time. He was sentenced to 3.5 years for this class A. Class A felony. I got Reyes here. Let me see. Reyes versus the state. This is another little piece of information. While he was incarcerated, he sued the state. He dropped a lawsuit against the state while he was incarcerated. Okay? You see it every day. Inmates are always trying to sue the state for whatever, right? At every opportunity that they can, right? And I got this information here. All right. This claim, which was filed in the office of the clerk of the court on October 20th, 2015. Well, he was sentenced to... Let's see if we go back up here. A robbery, this is Sean, okay, Reyes, okay. He was, the offense is attempted robbery, first degree. He was sentenced on 10/15/2013. for 3.5 years. I don't know how much of that time he actually did, I think you have to do 3.5 years for a violent crime. I don't know, but he was sentenced for 3.5 years, and he was sentenced on 10/15/2013. 2013, October 15th, 2013. So 3.5 years would be 16. So anyways, he's go down here. Sorry about scrolling down through here. Watch your eyes. Okay, this particular lawsuit, the claim was filed on or about October 20th, 2013. He filed the claim on October 20th, 2013, but he was just incarcerated on October 15th, 2013. So 5 days after he was incarcerated prior to this because he's, but 5 days after his sentencing, he files a lawsuit, okay? Files a lawsuit against the state. And, sorry. At approximately 9:30 p.m., a claimant was on the running track in the prison yard at Ulster Correctional Facility. Ulster is or was a reception jail. When you get incarcerated, you go into the system. You get sent to any one of a number of what they call reception jails. Then from the reception jail, they figure out what programs they're going to put you in or whatever, and then they'll send you to the facility that aligns with the programs that they're going to whatever. I don't know. I don't know. But he goes to the reception jail. 5 days later, after, I don't even know how long it took him to get there after sentencing. Maybe he was already incarcerated there when they sentenced him. I don't know. But usually you don't go to a reception jail until after you've been sentenced. Claimant was on the running track in the prison yard at Ulster Correctional Facility. So this puts him in prison, in the yard at the prison. On the running track in the yard at the prison, okay? Hereafter, Ulster Correctional Facility, when he was attacked by other inmates who beat claimant to unconsciousness. So he got beat by some inmates, according to his own lawsuit that he put in against the state. As a result of the attack, claimant suffered serious physical injury that included, this is in the paperwork, fractured nose requiring surgical repair, injuries to his eyes, an orbital fracture, and a concussion. This is all in the legal documents. Claimant asserts that the defendant, who's the defendant, failed to properly maintain and supervise the running track in a reasonably safe condition and failed to properly supervise, monitor, and control the inmates in that area. Oh, you're first the state. So he's suing the state. The state is the defendant in this case because he got assaulted by other inmates within days of being sentenced. He pissed the other inmates off. I don't know what happened, but that doesn't happen to every inmate that goes into jail. I can tell you that. It's alleged that at the time of the attack, the running track was extremely dark. Let's just read the lawsuit and see what it says, right? It's alleged because he sued New York State. We're part of the public. We're part of the state, right? It alleges that at the time of the attack, the running track was extremely dark and was not adequately supervised by corrections officers. So you think maybe he's got a grudge against corrections officers here? You think maybe he has an axe to grind here? Just putting it out there. Hereinafter referred to as COs. Moreover, it's alleged that the COs were not anywhere near the location before, during, or and after the attack upon the claimant. including the guard station nearest to where the attack occurred, which should have been manned by a guard, according to him, but was abandoned at the time of the incident. I think the word abandoned is put in there loosely. It is further alleged that the defendant knew, New York State and the Department of Corrections, knew or should have known, based in part on the number of past inmate-on-inmate attacks that have occurred in that area. Inmate-on-inmate attacks are happening all over in all the correctional facilities now. Incidences are on an exponential increase, in large part due to the implementation of the world socialism of halt legislation out of the UN. How would you like to be, on the street when an officer shows up at an incident and and the guy's violent, or he's assaultive on other personnel, assaultive on officers or whatever? You stuff him, cuff him, take him to jail. In jail, in prison, the same shit happens. An inmate goes off, causes a disturbance, gets physical, assaults other inmates, prison staff. It doesn't matter. You stuff them, cuff them, and you take them to jail. Affectionately referred to as a special housing unit, they call it, and affectionately referred to as the box. So it was always called the box for one reason. I don't know, since back in the day when it was a box. I don't know. But this new legislation says that you can't put inmates in solitary confinement because it's torture. Right out of the United Nations, also revolutionary collectivist doctrine. But this is what we got. This is what's happening. Okay. It is further alleged that the defendant knew or should have known, based on the part of the number of the past inmates attacks that have occurred in that area, that the running track was inherently dangerous because it lacked proper lighting. Oh, so all the engineers and all the years that freaking jail had existed, it didn't have proper lighting until he got there. And insofar as it was not properly supervised by COs, the claim also alleges that although claimant requested immediate medical attention for his injuries, he was initially denied immediate necessary treatment other than being seen briefly by a prison nurse. After any incident in a correctional facility, I can tell you from personal experience, no inmate gets whether he's been involved in an altercation with other inmates or an officer, he immediately, the first thing that happens is medical attention. Immediately. If he saw the nurse determines whether he needs further medical attention or not. Medical determines whether he needs further medical attention or not. It has nothing to do with security. So, but he's immediately receives medical attention. But in his lawsuit, he's throwing everything he can, throwing whatever he can to see what sticks, right? Everything in the kitchen sink, just to see what sticks. Something might stick, right? Yeah. And instead was put in a special housing unit hereinafter a shoe cell, where he was denied necessary medical treatment for his injuries. According to who? According to medical or according to him? Until the afternoon of the following day. The claim asserts causes of action for negligence, gross negligence, medical indifference, negligent and or intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent supervision and or retention of employees, negligent supervision of inmates, whatever that is, prima facie tort, and for the violation of claimant's rights, under federal civil rights statutes and the United States Constitution with respect to the October 20th, 2013 incident. So now part of the lawsuit is his violation of his rights under the Constitution. Everything in here. Everything. Just the whole hodgepodge, right? It's like a hobo stew, man. Throw everything in it, right? You think maybe he has a grudge? you think maybe he's holding a grudge here? Do you think maybe he's got an axe to grind? Do you think he's got a case history of lawsuits against the state for whatever reason? Frivolous or not? Sets precedent here a little bit, right? Further, the claim further asserts that on or about November 7th, 2013, in the afternoon at Ulster SHU, claimant was strip searched at which time he was verbally berated and physically abused by 2 COs. And it's not uncommon that such accusations are made on a routine basis, whether they happened or not. Just saying. One of whom punched claimant in the ribs and the other threw him face first into the wall, whereby causing claimant to sustain physical and emotional injuries. Remember when he was accosting the lieutenant at Elmira Correctional Facility? Do you have about the beatdown squads? You got beatdown squads here. I never heard the term beatdown squads in my whole career. Just throwing that out there. Never heard the term beatdown squads until I heard it come out of Reyes, his own mouth, on one of his videos. But yeah, the claim further asserts that on or about November 7th, 2013, they threw him face first into the wall, thereby causing claimant to sustain physical and emotional injuries. It's all alleged this occurred in the presence of and with the approval of a supervisor, of course. As a result of this second incident, claimant asserts causes of action for negligence, gross negligence, negligent and or intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent supervision and or retention of employees, as well as for violation of the claimant's rights under federal civil rights statutes and of the United States Constitution. Do you think he has an axe to grind? Do you think he's got a grudge? You think he holds a grudge, man, against officers? Correctional officers in particular? Just putting it out there. Just a question. Do you think that this guy doing ride-alongs with these officers, do you think these officers that are having him do ride-alongs with him that are being trained by this guy, do you think it would make a difference if it was known that this guy appears to be an ex-con, an ex-felon, that we have reasonable cause to believe that he's an ex-felon, violent felon, Class A, attempted robbery? Just putting it out there as a question. Would it make a difference? Would it make a difference to you? Why I'm doing this show. Shit. Do you think, what I'm just saying is that, do you think it would make a difference that to these officers that he's doing training with, doing ride-alongs with, that this guy here eating all this shit up is an ex-con who's been long carrying a grudge and an axe to grind, who will not admit to it, who had the opportunity to admit that he was an ex-con? Would it make a difference if he, to these officers, if it appears to be, or that it at least appears to be we have reasonable cause to believe anyway that he is an ex-violent felon, an ex-convict who served time for a violent felony, a first-degree robbery. Just putting it out there, right? We went down through this. We went down through this. We went down through this. Sorry about this. I'm going to get back to here. But I just want to say, would it make a difference? Would it make a difference to you? Is I don't know. I don't know. Our police officer is going to be trained by ex-cons on how to properly react to the people that are soliciting the action that these ex-cons are soliciting. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I don't get it. Just so you know. Remember, those officers that he's training with, those officers that he's training and those district attorneys that he's training, they make them legitimate. They give them legitimacy. All right. The Right to Monitor Act. I just wanted to go over this a little bit too, because here's the other thing too: is that these guys think that they can go everywhere. At least that's what they're putting out there. I have a right to do this. I can get in your face, this and that and the other thing. You know. For my next show, this is what we're going to get into. Okay. I want to get into this Right to Monitor Act. I want to get into a couple other laws. I want to get into these lawsuits, lawyers, some of the different things that we can look at, some of the different things I want to get into on what's in the law about, time, place, manner, restrictions on ways that maybe when officers engage guys like this, that we can learn some things on how to deal with them, on what they're doing with them. Maybe learn something, or make it so that maybe we can run some ideas by you that you can take to, do further investigations for yourselves to look where you can learn some of these things that I'm going to present to you in the next show. I look forward to doing that in our next show. But I'm going to wrap it up here for this show. I hope you got something out of it. I'm trying to keep my shows a little bit shorter so that, I was getting up into over 3 hours on a few of them. The other thing I apologize to, you might notice that my eyes are kind of screwed up. But got kind of a triple whammy from Mother Nature. First, I think it's during violent protest against me for spend so many hours researching on this computer on the subjects that I'm doing shows on, that my eyes just burn out. Then I got bit by a frickin' spider right on my eye, and then they got the smoke from Canada. I don't know, the combination of 1, 2, 3 punch, and I haven't got a makeup girl, and the show must go on, basically, is where I'm at with that. And I also apologize for a couple times I've noticed in my last couple shows, my last show anyways on this, I forget to turn the mic back on when I'm talking. You didn't miss much, but I don't edit my videos, so I hope you can see past that. And any other, it's just me. But the kind of a couple things that I wanted to point out is that this Reyes guy, how many of these auditors are ex-cons that are approaching these officers and entering these facilities, these government facilities, and they're causing disturbances? What's their axe to grind? What grudges are they carrying? And what potential is there in these guys when they go to up their game more and more and more to something that's going to get somebody hurt? That's where I'm kind of going on it. And I hope you got something out of it. I look forward to continuing this and diving into a little bit more on this. I got more for you to take into consideration. Thank you for stopping by the Liberty Perspective, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thank you.